So hello everybody, this is again Autogefühl, your premium resource for in-depth car reviews. Today with the new Toyota Prius 4th generation. We will first explain you a little bit about the very controversial exterior design of the car, then go on with a very detailed review of the interior, which I can tell you is also very exciting and very different. And then coming to the driving characteristics and the hybrid drivetrain, which is of course the most interesting aspect of the whole car. Because Toyota, since 1999, when the very first Prius was introduced, by the way, a quite normal mainstream three-box design, they sold 3.5 million units worldwide with the first three generations. So now the fourth one has made major progress in many areas, and we will come first to the exterior design. So the exterior design of the new Prius is very similar to the Toyota Mirai, the fuel cell car, which has a very similar design language and design DNA. And as you can see, it's very different from everything else on the road. It's very controversial, very polarizing. Some like it or even love it, others really hated it. I have mixed feelings actually. You can get accustomed over the weeks when you drive the car longer, but it's still a little bit strange, so to say. Well, what is most obvious here is the very low hood that slopes down dramatically. If you can see that badge here from Toyota is so low, if you compare that to other cars, I think that must be a record in some way. Also the main headlights, there's a lot of curvature here, slope going down here and then into the daylight running lights. These are the daylight running lights. This is the LED main beam here, and then here the turn indicators. It's also a design which is very much dictated by wind tunnel tests, because the more aerodynamically a car is, of course, the more frugal, the more efficient it is, and this is part of the whole package of the Prius and the whole philosophy. So they came down to a drag coefficient of 0.24, which is not a world record, but it's still pretty good. Well, let's next have a look to the side silhouette of the new Prius. It's a very short front overhang, and then they have this nice hybrid badge. It's also very typical for any Toyota Prius. And then look to the wheels. They look like light alloys, but they are actually just plastic covers here. But I think nevertheless they look pretty nice. And the tires are 17-inch in this case. This is standard in the comfort version. The standard car has only 15-inch wheels and tires, but the 17-inch, I think they look better, they better fill the wheelhouse, and they give you a little bit more grip on the road. Well, going further down, you can see there's not much sculpture in the doors. They are pretty flat, but then we're coming to the rear end, and this is, I think, the most dramatic view of the new Prius and most prettiest view as well. It's actually a fastback roof. It flows down in a very gentle and, in this area, very dramatic way to the tail end. You can see here we have this second rear window, and this is linked to the large rear window with this very nice black panel here. And then there's a lot of curvature in the rear bumper area and the rear fender area. We have first this shoulder here, which grows the longer you go to the end. It becomes broader. And there is another concave surface here. And that all comes together in a very dramatic rear end, again with a tail lamp which is pretty unique apart from the Toyota Mirai, which has a very similar tail end treatment. So if you only watch the car from the 3/4 view, it looks really great. It's of course a different story at the front end. You might argue then that it doesn't fit together, the front end design and the rear end design. But again here, this is mainly a result of the wind tunnel tests. And as we can see later here, underneath that one is really a very large trunk, and this is very helpful as well. By the way, the car's length is 4.45 meters and the wheelbase 2.70 meters. And just a little detail on the rear end. As you can see, there is no real roof spoiler, neither a separate spoiler here, because the car is so aerodynamically advanced it doesn't need any spoiler. But the only consequence of the design is that this trailing edge here is pretty high. But as on some older Hondas, for example, they have this additional glass area underneath that trailing edge here, this element, and there's also the third braking light installed here in this area. So it's a very intelligent solution, and I think it gives the rear end, apart from the again very sculptural taillights, a really nice balance, feeling of balance, apart from the taillights, which are again a little bit strange. So we open the Prius Interior by this fob key here, quite nicely designed. So the first impression is it's a very clearly structured interior with the main instruments in the center stack, with the infotainment system, touch screen, and then in the upper section we have various displays. We will explain to you that in detail later, and a very small sporty leather steering wheel. Here we have the cloth seats, which are of course standard in this comfort version. For the top model you can also have leather seats for 1,800 euros, but as you know from Autogefühl we don't recommend them, because then you have to slaughter some animals for that, so we better go with the cloth. The seating position is all manually, to vary manually here, the height adjustment. The only electrical feature is in this button here is the lumbar support. That is done electrically. All the other functions manually. Also the backrest. Right, so have a seat in the Prius. It's quite an airy feeling. The A-pillar is a little bit close to the head, but still okay for a guy who is not so tall like me. And as I said, the steering wheel, I particularly like it very much, because the diameter is not so large. It's not a truck steering wheel. It could also be in a sports car. Already here you see these white applications. And this is also a problem, an issue in the interior, which is polarizing. Right, let's come a little bit more into detail in the interior of the Prius. Of course, a power button here, start and stop button to start the engine. By the way, in most cases it starts fully electrical, only in the morning when the engine is still cold. Then the combustion engine runs for maybe 30-50 seconds. And then if you drive slowly it goes into electric mode. This is here the multifunctional display for radio, car setups. Here we have information about the journey, fuel consumption. This radio again, heating functions. This is the navigation screen. This is a slot for the CD here. Then we have these toggle switches for the temperatures, dual climate zone, passenger and driver, AC function, the usual things. Very nice little detail here are these Prius signatures in the air vents on these two and also on the two outer ones. This is a nice touch. Love for detail here. When you are a Prius insider and lover, you will have, you know, this joystick here for the planetary gear, automatic, with the usual functions, and as I said, the B function here for brake, going downhill to recharge even more electricity to the battery. This is the parking brake. Although you have the real parking brake is here on the left side, you have to push it with your foot in the old traditional way. So there's no handbrake lever here, rather you do it in the old-fashioned way. So to the right of the joystick we have the driving mode button with 3 different driving modes. I will tell you later what exactly that means. The EV mode is for fully electric mode, but this doesn't work all the time, only if there is enough charge in the battery and if you drive slow enough. So as you see clearly here, this center tunnel is in a totally different color than the rest of the car, whereas we have here gray and black surfaces and then this very nicely black piano lacquer console. This is in a white and it looks a little bit like a kitchenware, as if a kitchenware fabricator has manufactured that one. Again here there are people who said that's really nice because it fits to the car, it's a symbol for cleanness, for no pollution. In Japan especially white is a very well, nearly holy color, but there are also others who really were didn't make many nice comments about it. Well, we take it as it is. Much more interesting is this pad here. If you press this button, you may be able to charge your smartphone without any cable. Wireless charging of the smartphone. Not every smartphone can do that. For example, the iPod or the iPad, iPhone from Apple, they need a separate charging tray, and the others they have to work to the Qi technology. For instance, the Samsung Galaxy 7 can be recharged. The older ones, they also need a separate folio, I think, I was told. So it's not every smartphone can do that, but I think it's a very nice feature of the Toyota, and Toyota is a pioneer of that technology. They have already introduced it in the United States in the Avalon, for example, in 2012. We have here 2 cup holders, and then if that doesn't work, of course, you still have the traditional USB stick socket here and another 12-volt socket next to it. So we demonstrate you the starting procedure, what's going on there in the upper instrument display. So you see the Prius, the silhouette. Here we have the speedometer. You can see the fuel consumption, 4.6 liters. Outside temperature, 26 degrees. And here the car with the battery, the inverter and the electric motor and the combustion engine. And we will show you a little bit later. During driving you can then follow how the energy between these various elements is distributed in the car. Further to the right there's a clock, and a digital clock, and some other telltale lamps. So we enter the rear compartment of the Prius. The position of the front seat is now in my personal position. I'm 1.70 m only. And this of course is no problem whatsoever. Knee space and leg room is very generous. Head clearance is limited, as you can see here. A guy like the other Thomas, who is 1.90 m and something, he would encounter some problems here. He would probably even touch the roof line or the ceiling. Of course, this is a tribute to the shape, to the aerodynamic shape with this sloping rear part of the roof. But I can sit here very comfortably indeed. Well, let's talk a little bit about prices of the Prius. This comfort version is the medium one. There is a standard one, the comfort, and the executive. And the Comfort comes for nearly 30,000 euros in Germany and in Europe, 29,900 to exactly. It comes with a blind spot monitoring device with a rear cross traffic alert, which is very good. Smartphone, smart key for passenger and pilot, and 17-inch wheels, as we have spoken about, and a color head-up display. The Executive then, for 32,000 euros, has in addition a sound system with 10 speakers from JBL, an even more advanced navigation system and a rain sensor, among others. Also an intelligent parking assistant and more intelligent radar sensors. Options are very limited, just a few. As I said, the leather interior, which we don't particularly like. And you can also have some additional chrome packages for the exterior, and seating for the front seats is optional, 500 euros, and for passenger 320 euros extra. And also the parking sensors are not free of charge, you have to pay extra. But overall, I think for such a very comfortable and roomy car with these economical attributes, the price of 30,000 euros is very fair indeed. To emphasize that it is an economically friendly car, a hybrid car, Toyota here in her badge have some blue elements around this Toyota logo, which I always, for me, looks a little bit like a bull, the horns of a bull. But this is again also done by Nissan and other manufacturers who have electric or hybrid cars, these blue elements here. So opening the trunk area here, we have a 501, exactly speaking, trunk, much larger than on the predecessor, thanks to the battery, which is lying underneath the rear seat bench. So if you want to hide your luggage from the eyes from outside, you have this partition here. Then some hooks on both sides, and then underneath this, well, there is some space here for the tire fit system, and maybe some other stuff. Is some empty space still here, but this is also quite usual, nothing extraordinary. So it's easy to double the load capacity from 500 to more than 1,000 kilograms or liters if you lay down this two halves of the rear bench. But which is not so nice here, as you can see, is this step here. Always manufacturers try to avoid this, but in this case Toyota obviously didn't do that, probably because the battery is lying there. So this is a little bit of a handicap, but you can still, if you take off this bridge here, probably put a bicycle, like the other Thomas always likes to do, easily into that car. The distance here between the rear mounting points of the shock absorbers is not too generous here. That might be a problem. We don't have a bike here just now, but this is limited, definitely. Again, here some hooks on both sides. So a view under the bonnet of the Prius. Underneath this cover here is the well-known, proven 1.8 liter four-cylinder petrol engine with a power of 98 horsepower. And the combined power of the whole drivetrain with the electric motors is 122. So we're now starting with some driving impressions in the new Toyota Prius. As I told you before, the chassis has been tuned in a direction which is much more sportier than the predecessor models. The center of gravity is lower thanks to a new architecture from Toyota, which is used here for the very first time in the hybrid car. And as we will see later, when we come to some more windy roads, the steering is much more sporty and spontaneous and direct than in the old car. It's a lot of good fun in this car, actually. The visibility is also quite decent. As you can see here, it's quite low belt line of the door, so the side view is not much hampered at all, and the front view is also quite good because the hood is sloping down, as we can see also from the exterior design point of view, sloping down very much in a dramatical way. So you have also not a long hood in front of you which then suddenly stops, but you have a very short hood which slopes down quite dramatically. Also, the rear quarter view is fair enough. The rear window is very large. It is just split in half by this transverse element, which also houses the rear screen wiper. But in general, visibility is pretty good in this Toyota. Well, the sound insulation is also a very important point here. I can tell you, although we are now just stopping at a traffic light, that also in this area Toyota has done a very good job. As you might recall, if you are a Prius insider, in the old cars, when you accelerated, the engine became pretty noisy. And that was very much due to this elastic ribbon effect, as I say. It was the effect that the rotation of the engine didn't correspond with the actual speed of the car. So you always had the feeling there was a kind of elastic feeling in the drivetrain. But now in this car, the acceleration is much more linear. That means there is more harmony between the rotation of the engine and the speed as you speed up through the gears. Well, I say through the gears, of course, this is a automatic transmission, CVT transmission, so you can't really actually change gears. There are also no pedal shifts here on the steering wheel. But as I say, also on the motorway, Toyota has reduced the wind noise and the engine noise, so the car is also suitable for longer journeys. So the steering is very nicely balanced. It's not too heavy, very accurate. Toyota has done a lot in this area. The old Prius was already very frugal, very fuel efficient, but not really fun to drive. And here they have made a big step forward. Well, talking about the fuel consumption, I can tell you that we used over a period of 2 weeks only 4.6 liters per 100 kilometers. And I believe this is really good. Toyota claims an official fuel consumption of 3 liters per 100 kilometers. Of course, this is hardly ever possible to reach, but we think 4.6 is also very good indeed. The CO2 emissions, official CO2 emissions, are down to 80 gram per kilometers. And overall, they say that the engine or the drivetrain, which is still the 1.8 liter 4-cylinder petrol engine and then the electric motors, this efficiency of this drivetrain has been improved by 20%. And how was that possible? Well, mainly because Toyota was successful in increasing the amount of kilometers or miles that you can actually drive fully electrical. As we know from the old car and also from other electric cars, when you go downhill or if you brake, of course, then the battery is recharged thanks to brake energy recovery. We also have here in this gearbox the position B, which stands as an abbreviation for brake. If you shift into B, then the amount of energy recharged into the battery is even higher. On the motorway, they say, and we can approve that, we can confirm that the fuel consumption of the Prius is now very close to a diesel engine. You will ask me, how often can you drive purely electric? I cannot say exactly how many percent, But what is true and what I really could hear, if you go back home in the evening to your residential area, to your neighborhood, you can always crawl silently into this part of the city. And it can always happen that a neighbor don't see you, don't hear you, or doesn't hear you, and is very surprised that you are coming home just now. Also during the drive, sometimes the engine stops. It really depends on the actual driving situation, on the conditions of the road, on the condition or the position of the accelerator pedal. But I mean, somewhere this fuel reduction must have come from, and it came definitely from this reduced or this improved electricity range. By the way, in November this year, Toyota will also introduce a plug-in version of the Prius. And this plug-in version, they say, will have a 50-kilometer purely electric range. And as a little bonus for that car, and I think this is very exciting, they will fit free of charge, it's not an option, a large solar panel on the roof. And they say if you leave the car in the sunlight the whole day, it gives you 5 kilometers of extra electric range. It doesn't sound a lot, but if you say, I leave it in the sun in Arizona or in other southern American states or in southern Europe where the sun is shining most of the time in summer, during the week you can easily gain 30-35 kilometers of this 50-kilometer range. And I think it's a nice first step for a renewable kind of energy, also for electric cars in the future. Well, coming to the acceleration of the Prius, official figure is 10.4 seconds from 0 to 100 kilometers per hour, or 96 miles per hour. You can reach this figure if you choose the so-called PWR mode, the power mode. There's a switch here on the center stack where you can choose between 3 driving modes. First is the Eco mode, and we had the Eco mode on most of the time, therefore we have this very excellent fuel consumption of 4.6 liters. Then there is a so-called normal drive, which is halfway between power and Eco, and then the power mode. Just slow down a little bit to make a full acceleration, and then you can really feel a big difference. You can feel how the combustion engine and the electric motors work together to provide this, well, very spontaneous acceleration. The car, by the way, is shot with 17-inch tires and wheels. There's also a 15-inch derivative, but we think maybe with the 15 you can even save a little more fuel, but the 17 looks better and gives you a little bit more grip on the road. So we're now approaching a B road here with more bumps in the road and some more corners. And again here the car has a very long wheelbase. It has grown anyway by a few centimeters in length and width. And we can say that the setup of spring and dampers is on the comfortable side. No noises intruding in the driving compartment from the road. Engine now here is a little bit more noisy because it goes steeply uphill. Of course, don't forget it's still a 4-cylinder 1.8 liter only, not a 6 or 8 cylinder. So it's a nice compromise between a sporty set up and a comfortable setup in this new Prius. So now if we go downhill, we select the B mode here in the gearbox to regenerate some current or electricity into the battery, which is actually installed beneath the rear seats in a very good position. It's first of all protected nicely by this position in a case of a rear end crash, and as we can see, or as we have seen before, the luggage compartment therefore increased as a consequence to 500 liters. The battery is still a metal hybrid accumulator, not a lithium ion, as we know from the old Prius. Toyota is a bit conservative in that way, but it is a very well-proven technology, and why should you abandon it, I would say. So at the end of this slope here, we select again the D mode. Now the engine is of course shut off if you stand still. And we continue our drive in electric, and only with a sharper acceleration than the combustion engine comes in again. So on the display you see here now all three elements connected together. There's power coming now from the battery. Now we go uphill, so you can see with the brown arrows power coming from the combustion engine. The yellow arrows symbolize electricity, electric power. And when we go downhill in a few seconds, it will indicate that we recharge the battery, since the electric motor works as a generator. Yes, here we're now in a recharge mode. You can see from the wheels to the electric motor and then to the battery, power is recharged and stored in the battery. So now combustion engine comes in again. We lift the throttle, brake pedal, operate it, and then it all goes into the other direction. If you have nothing else to do, it's pretty nice to watch this, but you should also, of course, keep your eyes on the road. Don't forget that. Well, after 2 weeks with the new Toyota Prius, we have to draw a really positive conclusion. Toyota has really now, I think, here the pinnacle of hybrid technology so far, because the car has been improved in mostly all areas that are noticeable. First of all, it's more roomy. The perceived quality in the interior is better than in the second and third generation. The range, the electric range, or the stretches of road that can be driven electrically, has been raised considerably. Sound insulation is also very good. Right-hand handling is very pleasing. The engine is less noisy than before. The price performance value is also very good. I think 30,000 euros for such a roomy car is fair enough. And most of all, the fuel consumption, 4.5 liters per 100 kilometers in mixed conditions, also motorway, is something that no other manufacturer achieve at the moment. So we can really recommend you to buy that car if you don't want a fully electric car yet, because you have I'm a little bit afraid about the range of the electric car. So that gives you, of course, more safety in that respect. But you can wait until November. Then there will be the plug-in version of the new Prius with a 50-kilometer fully electric range and a large solar panel on the roof that gives you per day in the heat, in the sunshine, 5-kilometer extra range. So we are very pleased with the Toyota. Congratulations, our Japanese guys have done a good job on that car. It's just at the end, the design, either you like it or you hate it. That is, of course, a matter of personal taste. So that was Thomas for today, and thumbs up. Stay tuned with Autogefühl. See you next time around. Bye-bye.